Hi, I'm Rob Price, and I'm talking to some inspirational leaders of some of the leading AI and Gen AI businesses in the world. Welcome to Futurise.
Thanks very much for having me on the show. I'm Amanda Brock. I'm the CEO at OpenUK, and we are an industry organisation, a sort of groundbreaking industry organisation based out of the UK in open technology. And until recently, we would have said that was open source software, open hardware, open data. We have shifted a little bit, not in what we cover, but in terms of helping people understand what we do. So that would also include AI in terms of AI openness, whether it's open innovation, open access, open source, whatever that is, and open standards. So we cover the gambit of opens, which is really what we're trying to express with that open technology term. And my personal background is that I was a lawyer for 25 years, and 4 years ago, I shifted to being a CEO, and I now run OpenUK.
And for those listening who are used to me talking about AI and generative AI and the impact that that can have positively and some of the concerns, I mean, I've seen the agenda for the event, and you've got a lot of people talking about a lot of things, as you say, from an open point of view, but you've got a lot of people talking about AI and generative AI and the ethical side of that, haven't you?
We do. We didn't put the speaking slots for AI into a single track. What we've done is include AI in every track, I think, whether it's talking about careers, open data, open hardware, um, open source software, or just open source generally and openness. We've put it across the whole event because we think that's really important. And then we've also got a separate AI policy zone that I think is really exciting. That AI policy zone is something that will be made up of three parts. There's a cinema, which will be showcasing and playing content from OpenAI's. So AI, it's very difficult because of OpenAI, the company, not to say OpenAI. I don't mean the company ever if I mention it. And it's such a misnomer, isn't it? So I will have that running in the cinema. We will also have a consultation room, and that consultation room is going to have the Home Office and DSIT, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, the AI team there who were involved, as you'll know, in the AI Summit. And what they're going to be doing is direct consultation into the open source community. So the delegates at our conference, we're expecting about 800 people. Those delegates will have an opportunity to speak directly to those government departments. Now, across the globe, we're seeing governments, lawmakers, regulators, policymakers, government departments like this trying to work out openness as it relates to AI. And we see events where they'll invite people along to listen to them. But what's really special about this, and I'm really proud that they're doing it, is that they're coming in listening mode and they're coming along to hear what the community has to say. And whilst AI is important and openness around AI has some nuance to it, there's some things we really have to think about there. There is also over 30 years of history of open source where we have a development community who've contributed to the infrastructure we all rely on today in our existence and our everyday lives, whether that's in enterprises or the public sector. And we have to think of both of those together. We can't just silo things. So we have to think about that openness as it comes for AI and the openness as it sits for software or data that's already in space. So the great thing about this is it will be an opportunity for those communities that already exist, as well as the OpenAI communities, to go in and talk to those departments. And I think one of the things that makes it absolutely unique isn't just that they're coming in listening mode, but also that it's open. It's open to people who are at the conference. Whoever gets into that room first will be the people they hear. And normally what happens is people like me who end up speaking on behalf of communities, and that's filtered before, the government departments hear it. But this is raw content. This is real engagement. And I think it's a forward-looking and brave way to approach it, and it's the right way to approach it.
And how are you then sharing those conversations that take place or after the event? Because I guess for those listening, there may be some people listening who are indeed attending the event. there may be some who aren't able, maybe they're in Europe or the US or kind of further afield, but I guess they're going to be equally interested to know, well, what kind of conversations do happen? What do people say? And how is that then heard? And what do people then do about that?
So we're not actually recording those consultation rooms. There'll be minutes and notes taken from those. So there will be an output from it that we'll be able to see. But we're not making an actual recording of what's being said. We're recording the 7 rooms that the 8 tracks are going to be in, and the plenary sessions will be recorded and they'll be available whether you've registered or not as free download afterwards. And you'll see that with our conference last year, which makes it very accessible. The consultation rooms are also going to have a chap called Matt Buck from a company called Drawnolism sitting in them. And what Matt does is draw meetings. So Matt's going to produce these real-time drawings that we will also share on social. And I don't know about you, I find visuals really helpful.
Yeah, I've used rich pictures a lot in the past, so
Yeah,
it always helps to bring something to life.
it
Absolutely.
does, doesn't it? And it just, the story becomes more real, and we will have photographers around the venue and stuff as well, so we can share that kind of thing. We are trying our best to make it as open as we can and to do as much as we can to share the information. We just shared a report today. There's a lot going on today, but we just shared a report today on AI and open innovation. And we'll probably do a follow-up in a couple of months. It will be much quicker than I thought initially it might be because there's so much going on. And that report will bring to life some of what's been discussed at the conference. We'll try and persuade the Home Office and DSIT to write about their experiences in that.
You've also made me think now, of course, thinking about rich pictures. I've not yet seen the AI, generative AI version of the rich picture, but there must be, I mean, I'm sure we've all used things like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion and all sorts of kind of technologies. But it'd be fascinating to see those side by side, an artist, just to see kind of how close some of that
Yeah.
interpretation could be.
I don't think we've got space for that, but Stable Diffusion through Stability AI will be at the venue, and they will be they'll have a table where they'll be, you know, through the whole course of it. And then we've also got their head of policy speaking in the plenaries. We've got Imad, the founder of Stability AI, will be there. And actually, our report cover was designed using Stable Diffusion.
Cool, excellent. For those people listening, what's the message for them? So, as I say, you'll have a range of people, different people listening, different careers, different interests, different countries. So clearly, the message for some who are going or some who are thinking, I mean, is it sold out? Is it too late for anyone else to
No,
get into? So
I
there's
was
still an
asked
opportunity to
earlier.
get in there.
Yeah, I was asked earlier when I'll close it, and I'll close it when the event ends. Yeah, it's not that we're being challenged about it. It's just that we want as many people to come as possible and to have that opportunity. And we know that people are still finding out about us. We're a relatively young organization. It's only a year since our first conference. You know, we were doing a space on Twitter earlier today, and people were joining that who'd only found out about us today. So our tickets are an unusually priced 199. And the reason for that is that we work super hard to get sponsorship so that we can subsidize it. And it's the kind of ticket would normally be about £1,000. And it includes catering, it includes the full access to the venue. I can assure you that every delegate costs me more than that 199 ticket. But we do it because it's about an open community, and we want to make it possible for everybody to be there. Somebody was telling me the other day I should put a separate optional corporate ticket price in there. We might do that next year. But we also have free tickets, and we have free tickets for students, for the unemployed, and for community contributors. So anybody who wants to be there should be able to be there. And then if you can't be, the content, as I say, will be available afterwards.
And I think that's really important for many people. Out of interest, so it's London, isn't it, in terms of the event?
It is. And we have looked at moving at other places.
And that was going to be my question.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm Scottish. I would put it in Edinburgh or Glasgow as soon as look at you. However, there is a problem with that. And the problem is sort of twofold. When we talk to the community, they want it here because the most accessible place in the UK for a lot of people moving around is London. And then the second thing is that we are purposely doing this as a we're a fringe event. We're not even a main event. We're a fringe event at my favorite conference, FOSDEM, which is Free and Open Source Developer European Meetup. My favorite conference that I can't go to because I'm a fringe event. And that takes place this weekend in Brussels. Now, what that means is that we are able to welcome probably more folk from the US and globally than you have ever seen at a UK tech conference, right? We're bringing the Bay Area to London, and they often are restricted in how many times they can travel to Europe financially, but from a sustainability perspective, it's important too, and we encourage them to take trains from Brussels to London. But what you'll see is that we really are London calling the global tech sector together. So in terms of accessibility for that global audience, who'll be somewhere between 30 and 40% of our audience, and that's something most folk in the UK don't get access to. You know, I'm very privileged. I get to travel with the open source community and be part of these conferences all over the world. And I meet the people from the UK there, and they're a small number. And this is our opportunity to give the people in the UK access to those international folk and the skills that they bring here in our home country.
Cool. So I'd love to talk a bit more about ethics and compliance, especially around, well, open source everything, and as you say, the intersection of that with AI and Gen AI. I mean, I was chief operating officer of a payment business, global payment business, and I loved the fact that we used a lot of open source technology in delivery of the services that we did. But of course, in an enterprise business where you're constantly on the lookout for um, surety of delivery of service and management of threat and all sorts of different things, then there's an interesting balance. Now that's only amplified in
And
the
that's an interesting,
embryonic emergent space of AI. So
right, that's an interesting perspective though. You're saying threat there as if there's more threat with open source. So that's why I'm stopping you. That's a perception thing, and I'm not sure that it's true. I'm
so
not sure that it's true because what you're looking at is a threat in the open versus looking at something that you can't see.
well, I think irrespective of what it is, it's about the ability of an organization to understand and measure and manage in that space. Now, I know, and look, kind of day job is running a Gen AI startup, and therefore we're very focused around using a range of technologies, which absolutely include open source available tech. Um, but I know in my previous lives, then there will be people in those organizations, and there are people in the boards of any organization who will be continuously looking to understand how they protect their brand. I went to an AI event the other day in Parliament, and a lot of the discussion was worry about harms and threats and risks. Whereas
Mhm.
I'll look at it more positively from the things that can be achieved to make a positive impact on people, communities, businesses, organizations, and planet. So what's the discussion in the event that you've got and the visitors that you've got around considering the ethical position and the compliance place? And of course, as a lawyer yourself, I mean, that'll be in your, it's your heartland, isn't it?
It is in many ways. And one of the things that makes this conference unique is that we have those conversations with a broad mixed audience. What do I mean by that? We bring together in one building the engineering community, the business community, the user community, and then the law and policy people. And there are different tracks that focus on their needs and what they want, whether you're looking at, careers and entrepreneurship because you're in business, whether you're looking at tools that you're using and your engineers are there, or whether you're trying to understand law and policy better in the law and policy track or the open source track, or even in the AI policy zone. So there's things for everybody, but there's nothing happens in the building other than the plenaries for the first 2 hours of each day. And those plenaries bring to an audience, that broad mixed audience, conversations that generally happen in the policy space behind closed doors. They are the conversations that people like me get involved with, representing communities, and they are not necessarily conversations that the community get access to. And it's very important to me that those people hear these conversations so they know the kind of thing that's going on. And last year we focused on security. We had the White House come over. This year, we've still got security folk coming from CISA who are going to talk about open source and supply chain and things on the first day. And then on the second day, we've also got Ben Brooks, who's the head of policy at Stability, he gave evidence in Parliament, he's given evidence to Congress, and Professor Neil Lawrence, who also gave evidence in the Lord's inquiry. And they'll be talking about the policy issues. Now, I don't know what you've seen today, but we've had a report on the LLM inquiry from the House of Lords released earlier today.
Yep.
And that report mentions OpenUK 10 times and quotes from us once directly. But we were a bit of an afterthought. We didn't know this was going on. I actually wrote the response with colleagues, but I wrote the first draft overnight on a flight. So, we had to put it in the next morning. And that was tough, but the open community, the open source community, the open data community didn't get much of a chance to respond. And when you look at the one conversation about open source, Mozilla, a US company, was there. Hugging Face, a French company, was there. There's another AI company you may well know who I don't. And then there's a professor I don't know. We've got some of the world's leading legal and policy people in the open spaces in the UK, and none of us were there. Not just me, I mean, there's a whole load of people. None of us were asked to discuss the thing that is our bread and butter. And I have a concern that the voice of that open source community wasn't fully heard. There were selected organizations. It was the same with the summit. You've got Luther AI, you've got Stability, both of whom are at our conference. We've now got a new AI alliance, which represents open source, and they will also have a table at our conference. And I think that's important.
It's part of the challenge. I mean, if I compare the scene a couple of years ago, then even a couple of years ago, there were, I think at last count, over 200 different ethical AI frameworks that various organizations had created around the world. So, I mean, there was complexity there in terms of how do you find a path through that. But of course, today and the just explosion in the Gen AI space over the last year has meant that everybody's talking about it. And I guess part of it is that everybody can't be in every conversation. But the
Yeah.
key thing is how do you make sure that everything is representative and diverse voices
Yeah.
in that still?
I think there's a couple of things that worry me about it. One is I'm not an AI expert. I'm never going to pretend I am. I'm never going to be. I'm not going to learn enough about it quickly enough. I'm somebody who can talk about open source in the context of it. And I will tell you because of who I am when I'm at my depth. You need not just the AI experts and not just the people working in the open and AI, but the open source experts and the open data experts too. Because a lot of the people in the AI space don't understand those things. And there is a knock-on effect. And I'm sure this is absolutely true with AI expertise as well, but a lot of it is very nuanced, and effectively open source is like a replication of the whole tech sector. That's a big thing to get up to speed on. When I joined Canonical 16 years ago, almost exactly, it took me 6 months working in it day in, day out. So you cannot expect somebody who's in legal or who's in policy, who's doing one report or involved in one conversation to really get the depth of knowledge they need. And that's what concerns me, because these things are very nuanced. They'll have a knock-on effect. I've heard people at the Labour Party conference saying that AI, open source should be banned. And I thought about arguing with them, and I thought, you know what? Go on, do it. You're going to have no television. You're going to have no radio. You're going to have no car to drive. You're going to have no food. You're going to have no clothing. You're going to be cold. Because it underlies all of our technological infrastructure today. You can't just make that sweeping jump. And it really requires, there's a backlash against experts during COVID, but it really requires experts to collaborate and discuss things. And that's what's been missing. Too many people want to have opinions. They want to be relevant to a conversation, and they're giving opinions on things that they don't understand. And it's really dangerous.
I think is part of it not power, in the sense that I remember doing some consulting work many years ago, and the CIO was a CIO who pretty much said, "Well, the answer is SAP. What's the question?" Because that was the way that they'd been conditioned,
Yeah.
and of course, and it's not about SAP or any other
No, it
organization,
might be about AWS or Google or whoever it is today.
but large organizations will foster agendas, and
You see, that's
therefore
the thing, right? That's where you've got the lobbying from these big companies, because they have an infrastructure and it's something open source. We, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Microsoft won't mind me saying that they were public net enemy number 1 16 years ago when I got involved in open source. and they've shifted and they want to be judged on their actions today. They're the biggest single contributor in the world to open source software, according to GitHub anyway. Now, that shift is a journey, and that's a journey of understanding and engagement, because they know they have to be, and there's a number of reasons for it. But I think just building that understanding and understanding that those companies have huge pots of money they use to lobby, and you're comparing that to a community, and there's money in it because some of those companies are involved. There's people making a lot of money out of open source, out of open data. However, the community representation is not in the same place. But that's a thing, and it's the same with the whole open AI piece or AI openness piece. That's a thing that the policymakers don't yet fully understand, and they don't know how to tap into those communities or the relevance of those communities, in my opinion.
So as we approach the finish, Amanda, tell me about the ambition in terms of this conference. So your second year, what are you hoping to kind of to achieve this year, and maybe kind of set up for the following, assuming that this isn't the last one. So assuming that kind of you're pushing it forward, what does great look like for you?
3 or 4 days before great looks like it not being chaos. I think great looks like a happy audience and happy speakers. So we've got almost 200 people speaking. We'll have upwards of 800 people coming through the venue over the 2 days. Last year, the energy was incredible. We have 50 partners who will be sharing what they do in our DX experience. There's some interactive stuff. We have our photographer who's been collecting images of the community, giving people free headshots, all of that stuff going on, the party on the Tuesday evening. All of that pulls people together and gives them opportunity to meet each other. And it's as much about networking and meeting people and engaging with others with similar interests as it is about going and sitting in sessions. And we try to enable and facilitate that. And there'll be a lot of people who are deep experts, but there'll also be a lot of people who are there to learn. And this is an early stage engagement for them. And, making them feel included is important. And then I think representing that diversity of the future. So when we look at the tech sector today, it may not be as diverse as it ought to be, but in the future it will be, like it or not. That's where it's going to end up. So what we try to do is include that future-facing community. So I would expect and hope that it will be a much more diverse room than you've seen in any other tech conference.
Excellent. And for anyone who's listened and thinking, I could really get there, just a reminder as to how they kind of register.
Yeah, so stateofopencon.com. I'm sure you'll put that in the notes for me. And if you go onto that and hit register, if you can afford the 199 ticket price or your employer will cover it, you register there. If not, drop a note to admin@openuk.uk explaining which category you fit into, so unemployed, community contributor, or students. We have given away most of those tickets, but there are a few left. And I very much hope that we'll see you along there at the brewery on Chiswell Street on the 6th and 7th of February. People are welcome to arrive from 8 a.m. each day. Be very full days. Tickets include catering, so there's obviously lots around and about that area, but if you want to stay on site, we would encourage you to do that and to meet folk.
Amanda, excellent. I wish you all the best with the event next week.
Thank you.